Welcome. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the South San Antonio Independent School District. Today is Wednesday, May 16, 2018, and the time is 6 p.m. Mrs. Martinez, could I have roll call?
Mrs. Angelino Seguin.
Present.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr.
Here.
Mr. Edward Munguia.
Here.
Mrs. Leticia Guerra. Here. Mrs. Connie Prado.
Present.
Mr. Luis Rodriguez.
Here.
Mrs. Elna Flores.
Present.
Okay. Now will be the Pledge of Allegiance, Texas Pledge, prayer, and call to action.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to gather for the South San ISD Board of Trustees meeting. We ask for your hand of blessing tonight. We ask that you guide and direct our meeting so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals on this day. Amen. Our call to action.
All students will enjoy successful education experiences to empower them to make decisions and enrich their lives in the future they create.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Mrs. Brother. Madam Chair, I have a point of order if I could before we go into closed session, because that's the next item.
Okay.
I have a question for legal at this time. Tonight we're going to be voting on two items, which is the tax rate from 104 to 117, and of course the election order. I noticed on the agenda, and Dr. Saavedra did respond to me. I had the question. It's unusual. First of all, it was on the draft agenda. Now it's on the regular agenda, but it's at the very end, and that's the citizens to be heard segment. I called agencies to find out the right procedure, especially when it comes to a bond or GRE, because I know that you have to have public notice, which we've done. The district publicized it in the newspaper. But we also have to allow the citizens for input on those two items. And I looked at everyone referred me to the Texas Education Code, and I did look it up. And it does say that on the input for the citizens, this district using either tax rate adoption process must publish notice in compliance with specific statutory requirements, and we've done that. We've complied with that. And hold at least one public meeting, which is tonight, I'm assuming, to discuss and receive public input on the proposed tax rate. So my question is it proper the way it's put on the agenda? Because are we going to vote on these two items before the citizens are heard on those two particular items? Shouldn't it be the other way around?
Madam President of the Board, Dr. Saavedra, my understanding is that individuals could sign up to speak on each individual agenda item. So at the time of the agenda item, if we have individuals who wish to speak, they will be allowed to do so before the board begins the discussion. So that's how I understand the process.
Correct.
Okay, so when the item, and I guess now, thank you, legal. So that will comply with everything, we won't have any problems with that. So I guess when it's time for those items that have to be approved, citizens will be allowed to come up and speak. Does that also include a budget presentation?
Yes.
Also? Okay.
The budget item.
Okay.
It's on the agenda as an item.
All right, I just want to make sure we're in compliance with whatever is required.
Yes.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay. And so, in regard to that, if you are a citizen to be heard and you're wanting, on the sign-in sheet, make sure that you respond to the question of, is it an agenda item, which one it is, or other. And if it's an other, it will be at the end of the meeting, close to the end. Okay, the board will return to open session and take appropriate action. We're going into closed session. If any on items discussed in closed session, no action will be taken in closed session. Further, board members are reminded that all items discussed in closed session must remain confidential so as to avoid liability to the district. The board will consider and discuss the following items. Closed meeting pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.0821. Number 1, discussion concerning personnel matters pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. And the time is 6:05 p.m.
estaba enseñando de cómo hablar de Mike. Como que
The meeting is now back in session. The time is 6:40 p.m. And I have the sign-in sheet. The next section is the superintendent's remarks. Dr. Saavedra.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Our remarks this evening are directed at our child nutrition employees. I see a lot of our ladies that are here tonight. I know Mr. Zamora spoke to most of the employees in child nutrition last week. And I know many of you are here to express your concerns. The fact that the administration is looking at the possibility of outsourcing food services. I want to speak to that just briefly. And you'll also have an opportunity to speak to that item, I believe, when we get to the budget presentation. But a couple of things. In the last several weeks, month or so, actually several months now, as we have discussed the projected deficit in the part of the district, and we've identified a deficit of about 6.4 million. Many people have come up to the mic and have expressed doubts that we have that kind of deficit, and that reductions and efficiencies in the district are not necessary. But the truth of the matter is that projected deficit is very real. What has that got to do with food service, child nutrition? The only thing it has to do with it is this, that the school district has to be able to close these gaps that are projected in the budget. What we're looking at is possible efficiencies. Honestly, we don't even know if there's efficiencies to be gained by looking at outsourcing, whether it be food service, whether it be transportation, whether it be whatever it may be. But I do think that we owe our taxpayers, our community, the right to look into these different efficiencies. The fact that we're looking at it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Matter of fact, as we look at it, we may determine that it wasted our time. But the fact we're looking at it does not put your job at risk at all. If the decision was to be made by the administration to make that recommendation to the board, and even if the board approved it, it still would not cost you your job. None of the jobs are on the line in reference to looking into this type of proposal. As a matter of fact, there's different ways that if we were to do this, there's different ways to follow up on this process. You could very well remain Southside employees, or you might become employees of whichever vendor selected. Or it could be a combination of the two. There's different ways for these proposals to be submitted. We've not even written specifications concerning what are we looking for. We're simply looking and exploring at the possibility of efficiencies that we might be able to gain if we outsource one of our programs. I can tell you, and I've told the board before, that the operation of child nutrition is one of the most efficient operations we have in the school system. So in a way, to some degree, I have some doubts as to whether or not we can even gain some efficiencies or not, because it operates pretty efficiently already. And the fact that we're looking at it does not mean that the administration has doubts concerning how it's been run. It's been run very efficiently, not only recently, but for years. But the main thing I wanted to do is reassure everyone that as we look at this and continue to look at it, none of the jobs are on the line, none of your salaries are on the line or anything like that. But I simply wanted to express that to our employees, because I see a lot of our ladies here, and I wanted to reassure you that. Thank you.
Okay, so then the next is presentation, reports, and discussion. Item number 1, report on constraint progress measure 2.1. Counselors will increase their time directly interacting with students. This is the Lone Star governance item. So I will allow a little more on the comments, concerns, and questioning by the board. Let me see if I have any citizens to be heard on that item. And I do not. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
So before I turn it over to Ms. De Leon and Mr. Gallardo, I just wanted to briefly remind the community and everyone in the room that in 2017, this Board of Trustees voted on student outcome goals, constraint measures for themselves, constraint progress measures for the superintendent as a result of their training in the Lone Star governance. And because of that training, this board is working as a team of 8, and I just kind of, now that I have gone through that training, I kind of want to just publicly say that I'm very impressed with how this board has been running things along those lines, and this is direct reflection of y'all's leadership. We weren't paying attention to this, quite frankly, until the board said this was important, and the board is right, it is important. And so with this is a baseline year. We've never tracked data of what counselors, how they spent their time. And so this constraint on the superintendent has brought, kind of like, awareness creates responsibility. And so this year it's been we've created tracking measures where we can really start honing in on how we can ensure that our counselors best serve our students. So I just want to thank you for your leadership. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. De Leon.
Good evening, board members. Ms. Beto is absolutely right. As a result of our board goals, they have helped us to evaluate our practices systemically across all departments to improve student outcomes as well as student support services. This school year, we have implemented a monthly counselor reporting system. So each month, our counselors track their time, engage in the 4 domains of the state guidance framework. Those domains include guidance curriculum, individual planning, responsive services, and system support. We had one goal this year, and this expectation was clear with principals and counselors, and that was to spend more time with our students. At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Charlie Gallardo, lead counselor at the high school, and he's going to walk us through the domains of the state guidance framework.
Good evening. As Mr. Leon said, my name is Charlie Gallardo. I'm the lead counselor at the high school. The state of Texas has embedded four domains that counselors must follow, and these include guidance curriculum, individual planning, responsive services, and system support. The goal of our counselors is to work on the left side of the continuum, which of course is the first 3, guidance, individual planning, and responsive services. I just want to briefly explain those. This is a chart that counselors, we follow. That way we know where to mark our time, mark our minutes. And briefly explain these. Guidance curriculum. Under guidance curriculum, this is where counselors will do classroom lessons or small group lessons. But at the elementary level, it could be a bullying lesson. At the middle school level, it could be a anti-drug lesson. At the high school, it would be learning how to calculate your GPA or learning the pathways for an endorsement. In regard to individual planning, This can include when counselors meet with students individually, whether they're going to pass to the next grade at the elementary or middle school, and of course at the high school, whether they're on track to graduate in 4 years. But importantly, under individual planning is when we meet with our McKinney-Vento students. Our McKinney-Vento students are our homeless students. In these cases, counselors supply our McKinney-Vento students they can supply them with hygiene products, food and clothing, and in some cases even a VO bus pass. And counselors at some campuses are the protectors of our homeless students. With regard to responsive services, I do want to say that responsive services, counselors are the first responders. I can assure the board and the community that when a situation comes up and it's a student, a counselor has to do a responsive service with the student, we're going to drop everything that we're doing to meet the immediate needs of our students. Counselors have been taught that, educated on that, coached on that, and that is our number one goal, is to meet the immediate needs of our students. One example I can think of is if a student is in an abusive situation, at home, then a counselor will get on it and get with the administrator, PD, and CPS. And counselors are doing that on nights, weekends, Sundays. We're collaborating with each other, and keeping everybody on the same page on that. And that would include our responsive services. And at this time, I want to turn it over to Ms. Dunn so she can go over system support.
Although system support does not directly involve students, our students do benefit. I'd like to give you an example of system support. Cafecitos. Our counselors conduct cafecitos with our parents. During these cafecitos, our counselors share resources and even at times train parents on parental skills. This may range from how to work with your students on homework or how to help with behavior at home and other mental health tips. The last one I'd like to share is non-guidance. Although non-guidance is not a domain in the state guidance framework, we wanted to have this on our monthly reporting system. We wanted to track time in this area. But as with the system support, non-guidance efforts do benefit students. And I would like to emphasize that our counselors are an essential part of our leadership team, so they share responsibilities in keeping our students safe and secure. And so it will require them to help out at lunch duty to ensure that our students are safe, that there aren't any fights, any issues like that. So they will chip in to help monitor the students. Okay.
So I just want to say something on non-guidance. Many of you were at an event last night at our Top 10 dinner. That is a counselor-sponsored event. The state of Texas doesn't allow that under 4 domains. But even though we're indirectly working with students, it is for students. So again, it's not one of the 4 domains, but it is as counselors are in charge of that. We learn that. Next week, next Wednesday, and I want to invite anybody who's here, we have our decision day. I know some of you went to our first annual decision last year, and it's on Wednesday at 10:45 in the Athletic Center. Just want to throw a plug in there. This is where we celebrate our seniors, where they're going to go off and do their post-secondary education, whether it be a tech school, 4-year university, private school, public school, 2-year college, military, and this is a big celebration. Again, doesn't fall under one of the 4 domains for counselors. It is a fall under. We have to mark it as non-guidance because it's not a 4 domain. But again, it's celebrating our seniors. It's a big event for us, and of course it's a district initiative, which is which is college and career readiness. Just wanted to say that comment.
So it does align with our your 4-1 goal. Okay. So now we're going to review the data. We're going to take an opportunity to now look at the artwork at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. So as you can see here, counselors at the elementary spent 67% of the time in the 4 domains with students. So they were providing lessons, they were working with McKinney-Vento students, and also working with those students in crisis. Also, many of them were doing cafecitos and other things to help support our students. At the middle school level, our counselors worked in the 4 domains, 60% of the time with students and guidance curriculum, as Mr. Gallardo stated, working on classroom lessons, perhaps on anti-drug lessons, cyberbullying. That is something that is pretty rampant at the middle school levels. So they are working with students in these 4 domains. At the high school level, counselors are involved 80% of the time with students in these 4 domains. So we are doing lots of investigations to see exactly what were those techniques that led to the high percentages in this level. And I will tell you that looking at this, we saw that there was strategic schedules developed. Counselors were had fidelity to these schedules, and the principal and the counselors, as well as the counselors, were monitoring closely this data. It's important that we also, this data is submitted to principals at the end of the month, to the principal as well as to our division office. And we have reiterated to principals and counselors that it's important that they review this data on a monthly basis, just as they review iStation data, MAP data. We want to make certain that we are focusing our attention and our work in these 4 domains. So as Ms. Castro said, this year, this is the first time we've tracked this data. So right now, collectively across the grade level, our work with students in these 4 domains is 70%. We have kept in mind the 20% goal that you have set for us. So we are confident that with greater focus in those 4 domains, with more attention to our schedule development, fidelity of those schedules and monitoring of our data, that we next year can come back at this time and report that we have a 20% gain, and so our goal next year is 84%. At this time, we would like to answer any questions.
Okay, board members, the floor is now open. This is a Lone Star governance item. So I will monitor the time, but it can exceed 2 minutes. And so I'm opening the floor for comments, questions, or concerns. We see Mrs. Flores, Mr. Ibarra. Okay, we can begin there. Ms.
Thank you
Flores.
for this report. It clearly outlines, the duties that counselors do, and it seems like there's a lot in the counselor's plate. But I notice as I look at data, and Dr. Savetta, I will address this to you and first, and then if there's staff here that will answer that, I gladly would like to listen, because they're the ones that are in the field doing this. But I noticed that about 1/3 of the counselor's duties are focused on the non-guidance services. So I checked to see if there was any local policy that addressed this, and I only saw that there's legal policy, and that's FFEA, which addresses the Student Assistance Program, Counseling Comprehensive Guidance Program. So do our counselors have a comprehensive guidance program that they go by? Dr. Smith?
So I can say that, so we do have focus on the 4 domains through, we purchase curriculum for counselors. But if we do need to update our policies, that's something that we can absolutely update.
Okay.
To reflect, these 4 domains.
Exactly, because as I kept looking into to see if there was any local policy, there isn't any. I found out that there's the definition of a counselor under DEA legal. It says that a counselor means an educator who provides full-time counseling and guidance services and holds a relevant certificate from SBAC. So my question here is, how can we change policy, Dr. Savetta, to address counselors providing full-time counseling and guidance services to our students?
I think really what's needed, first of all, the legal policy really lays out the legality of the counseling certification and what's expected under those certifications. What's needed more than anything else is more of an administrative regulations that lays out counselor responsibilities, the expectations for counselors as to what are the type of assignments that will be assigned to counselors. When you look at the 30% or so that are non-counselor duties, an administrative reg could lay out that none of those assignments should be given to counselors, for example. It could be a local policy, but ordinarily these type of things fall under the administrative regs, because they're fluid, they're dynamic, they change sometimes from year to year, and they would not require it coming back to the board for amendments. But I do think it's something that, especially now that this is being monitored, that is necessary. And I certainly will work with the staff and see if we can come up with the appropriate regulations.
That would be great, because of course, under FFEA legal, there's this program design there that spells out
Right.
what are the duties, and the counselors should have, it says that the school counselor shall design the developmental guidance and counseling program to include, and it's all on there. So my question is, that's my original question, do counselors have a comprehensive guidance program at each campus? And that's something that you said you're going to look at.
Right.
Then my other question is, how will counselors support students as they get acclimated to the new academy models in the middle schools?
So we're already, our academies and teachers and coordinators are already meeting as a PLC. In fact, they met yesterday and meeting next week and the following week. In addition, we're also having parent meet and greets over the summer to keep them engaged, breakfast, things like that, to make sure that we have that identity for our parents as well. And so the way the counselors have been, the middle school counselors have been supporting is to, they are going to be trained as well on the AVID strategies. We're also having an AVID coordinator on, I believe, the STEM Academy because of the high numbers we have at Dwight. And as y'all may remember, AVID is AVID via individual determinations of college readiness, to get our kids ready and starting thinking about their endorsements, thinking about what their long-term plans are. So there is going to be additional support at each of our academies to help the counselor along that path to coach our middle school kids.
And I would like to add that we have had a collaborative approach. So this whole semester, as we've been, as the process has evolved, with regard to master schedules, choice cards, our staff, Ms. Bazalua and Ms. Bills have, with the guidance of also Mr. Gallardo, they have been regularly working collaboratively with our middle school counselors.
So an extension to that question is, next year it's one grade on the academies. The following year we're adding another grade. So by the third year we'll have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So will that one middle school counselor be in charge of that academy for those 3 grades, as well as the regular students that are, the regular school? Because you have the school within a school, which is the academy, and you have your regular school.
Well, and we also have a coordinator that does nothing but the academy. And so it's going to be a lot of blended roles as we start launching. I do know and I know just like we have a director of early college at our early college academy, and I can tell you she does not just do what is on her job description. She counsels, she works with counselors, she works with Mr. Gallardo, she works with the academic, she does it all, whatever the needs of the kids are. So what we're trying to build is a collaborative effort and a team effort that it's all of our kids, it's everybody's. And so as the academies grow, if it shows a need for an additional unit that's needed, then I'll definitely bring that recommendation to the board.
Okay, that sounds good. And finally, my last question. Are there other strategies that other school districts have used to enable counselors to dedicate more of their time to serving our students?
I'm not aware. In fact, I got interviewed today by the press that they saw our report and was actually asking if other school districts were looking at what we're doing, because I guess some other districts, they use their counselors as testing coordinators, things like that, which we do not do that. And so I'll be happy to look and see if there's other, other districts, how they use their counselors, if they're doing a better model than we are, if they're monitoring it, But from what I understood, they reached out to us saying, asking me a quote about, testing and things like that. I'm like, no, And now, of course, during the week of testing, everyone's hands on deck. I send my staff out, everyone's hands on deck during the week, but that is not expected to be their responsibility as a testing coordinator, which from what I heard from this reporter, that I think some districts add that duty to counselors.
Yeah, but with some exceptions, when you don't have a full-time VP, the counselor does step in to do the testing. And also, my understanding that is in, when I asked the question about 504 at a previous meeting, Dr. Smith, our counselors are the contact for 504. And that may be looked at as well if it gets very overwhelming for our counselors where they're not spending the direct time with students. Other districts use their administrators to be the contact for 504.
And right, and so that's a lot, and so I know we're trying to protect the fidelity of counselors, but we also have only one assistant principal at every elementary, and we only have one principal at every elementary. And the assistant principal, if 504 is a very detailed paperwork, following up in the classroom, and so you know, we may have to come back and look, and if the board, you know, maybe we'll make a recommendation if we need another unit and additional for that, you know, that would be something we could look at.
Okay. Thank you, that's it for me.
Thanks for that presentation. And it's good to see, you know, when we first talked about making the counselors a focus of a constraint, you know, I think it was twofold. One of the reasons or a couple of reasons that we did that was oversight and accountability, right? Because I think we would see differences campus to campus on what, you know, counselors were doing or not. And then secondly, the counselors serving as a focus or a priority in the campus, right? Because I think everybody understands that the impact that counselors can make in the campus and in the classrooms. And it's good to see that we're at least on the right track and tracking the info now and at least coming up with some plans of action on what we can do. But in the light of the recent school shootings, their safety in schools needs to be at the forefront. I think that's where counselors become even more important to the conversation. They can identify children at a very young age who may be having problems, who, you know, those problems could lead to bigger and more dangerous things later on in life. And I think with the counselors focused at the campus level, we can help in these areas. So I think the school atmosphere changes when you have a good counselor. You know, they can really impact that campus and they can really help. So I just have a couple of questions related to that, I guess. So who, besides the principal at a campus, oversees what the counselors do?
So we work collaboratively. We monitor as well as these reports. We bring in the counselors for monthly professional learning, which our focus the last 2 years has been on mental health awareness, where they are learning to look at signs, triggers. So ultimately it's the principal, but it definitely is a collaborative approach to supporting our counselors, to making sure that they're equipped to serve our students.
Because I kind of see, I almost see the need for a director of counseling, somebody to oversee that, and because it seems like, and what I don't think what anybody wants on the board, or when we had these discussions, I don't think it was ever a deal where we wanted to have a paper and then you check off a few things just so that, you know, hey, the board's concerned and, you know, here you go. It's more, you know, the impact that we think counselors can have, and I think that's why we're trying to make it a focal point. So somebody to directly oversee all counselors, because I know the roles change at elementary school, middle school, high school, and so the focus changes a little bit on what they should be doing. But somebody to oversee that and hold counselors directly accountable, because it's kind of tough when you're a principal. And I know we're trying to make principals more autonomous as we go SGS, but sometimes they're a little overwhelmed, and it's kind of easy to say, can you run some copies? Or, you know, I mean, I don't know what counselors could get asked to do outside their role where they could be impacting kids. And so I feel like, you know, a director, kind of like we're using directors at academies and we're using directors at these other programs at the high school, somebody to oversee council. Is that somewhere where we could add a director, Dr. Sabetta?
The district at one time had a coordinator for counseling services, and through budget reductions several years back, that was eliminated. And it's my understanding that Mr. Gallardo has some of those responsibilities.
Yes, he's actually co-children's counselor. I think counselor.
So he's not only the head counselor at the high school, but he also has the responsibility of coordinating counseling services district-wide. That's why you see Charlie here more often than you see anybody else as far as the counselors, because he does have that role as well.
And I totally understand that. I appreciate all your work. I do see him around a lot, and he does a great job, I'm sure. But it's overwhelming to be a high school counselor and still try to impact a lot of other roles. I know it's tough. So, I don't know, maybe that's something we can look at in the future. Secondly on that is, and I don't want to kind of go outside my lane here, so tell me if I am, but how do we, if staff indicates that counselors should be doing more before or after school, does that kind of play a role in like counselor contracts? Do they have regular teaching contracts? How does that work?
They're like in.
Yeah, they're Chapter 21 contracts, very similar to a teacher contract.
Right.
The number of days are different. But yeah, it's basically a teacher type contract.
So something I just want to be careful of is, this happened at my previous district where they really had the counselor super defined. They could not do this. They could not do this. They only could do this. And this was at my campus that I was a principal at, and I was a high school principal, and I was like, okay, I need my kids graduated. That's great that you're doing this lesson. I understand that you're doing a guidance lesson, but the guidance lesson wasn't something that was a need on it was, I think, dating violence was the topic. We didn't have that issue at my campus. It was more on drugs, it was more on, that was the issue. But most importantly, I needed my seniors to make sure they were on track to graduate. And so when I kind of had to wrestle a little bit with saying, listen, you have failed if kids aren't walking the stage. If you missed, oh my gosh, they needed to get this section. Or and I had that where kids thought that they were on track. And oh, did we forget? No, you needed to take this math again. So so something I want to be, just kind of bring to the, that everybody, all of us do more with less. The principals don't just do what's on their job description. Counselors don't just do what's on their job description. I don't think anyone in any of the staff just do what's on their job description. If a kid is in need, everyone hooks up and let's, service that kid, whether it's before school, after school, and sometimes for counseling, counselors, if they need to make a parent visit, if they need to make a home visit because they see an outcry, that might be outside of the regular, crisis doesn't just happen within the school day. And so, but they're not alone, and I guess that's what I'm kind of trying to share is that it's not just the counselors, the principal, they all have to work as a team to best serve our kids. So I just kind of want to throw that out there, that if we get a little bit too narrow, then I've seen it the other way, where, kids graduating was only 20% of their evaluation. I was like, that's 100%, we can't, we have to have kids graduating. So it kind of got a little bit too much, if that makes sense. So I just want to make sure that we stay in balance with, them working as a team, because it's not, if a child's in crisis, yes, the counselor's the first point of contact, but it's also the principal and the assistant. We have to, and our social worker to bring in, and our staff. We can't solve some of the problems or help provide support to our kids by ourselves alone. It has to be a team. And so that's what I think that has been very impressive this year is, I think in the past, maybe counselors stayed in their office at certain campuses, didn't communicate with the principal, didn't communicate with the leadership. Now they are meeting regularly. Everybody knows if the parent had a concern in the pre-K, everybody knows. So if that parent comes up, whether it goes to the counselor's office, assistant principal, they all know there's an issue with we need to make sure we connect with that parent. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as well.
So I totally agree. I don't think it should be a one-man thing. I mean, everything at our campus is.
That's why it's all up to you.
But, so I'm curious to see with the principals having a little bit of autonomy this year over the budget with the budget constraints that we're looking at, that if any campus cut a counselor or not, and what kind of effect that would have at a campus that did not have a counselor.
So we had 4 campuses that decided that they would share a counseling unit. They will have a half-time unit of a counselor for the campuses.
Elementary?
Yes, sir.
So I don't know that we service, either campus to the full potential when we have time of counselor like that.
I agree, and I think that, and that's only one little snapshot of the picture. It may be, because there's some campuses that like I'll speak for the high school, I know Dr. Lee Hernandez would there's no way he would give up one of his counselors, all of them, everybody, so I think that's only one snapshot of the picture. I think we need to go, it may be a performance issue. I don't know, at those 4 campuses, because as you said, some schools, it's different at each school, and we're trying to, have a system in place where these are the expectations. This setup has been very helpful for at least, especially our new counselors to the district, being very clear of their role, what it looks like, how they should spend their time. So I think as we continue with this system and put it in place and know that it's being monitored, know we're presenting it to the board, principals are monitoring it, we're monitoring it, I think the quality that our counselors provide is just going to increase.
So, so that if we would run a TRE and it would pass, I know we're doing budget comparisons with and without, would we automatically add counselors to all the campuses?
What would happen would be if the TRE is successful.
Okay, so let me end the conversation, because that's in the budget presentation. As far as
Okay,
reductions
that's fine.
at the campus
Okay.
level.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so bring it back to the
I'll
concern.
bring that up. Okay, so let me move on to the next question. Is there a way, maybe, this is for Mr. Gallardo, but can someone give me an example of how a counselor gets called in to handle a disciplinary issue?
They don't handle disciplinary issues, but they will look at the root cause. If there's a student that's all of a sudden like 5 days a week getting a referral to the office, that's where the counselor will come and play a role to see, what is the root cause. And that would be the only cases to identify root causes.
So we don't, on a regular or normal basis, have counselors trying to do other duties where they would become a disciplinarian?
Not from the data that was logged. The data that we received from counselors that was logged, that did not show that. So if that's happening, they're not reporting it.
Correct.
Okay. And then, okay, so how do counselors plan for guidance curriculum? And is there a way that we could possibly see like just a plan of that, or am I outside kind of laying on that question?
We can send an email to the.
We can send you, but we actually hold like PLCs here through our monthly counselor meetings. In fact, early in the year, we asked counselors, and we're constantly asking, what is an area we can support you in? What's your area of need? And so they did mention guidance lessons. So we had our PBS department supply some resources, and then counselors came with, we have some expert counselors. So lessons that have been successful, they came in and they've had planning sessions. So those are ongoing.
And they've also shared, like, if they had struggled with a parent, well, what would you do in this situation? So it's also been that kind of support too, because when you're the only counselor on that campus, and speaking for the elementaries, you know what I mean? You don't have someone to collaborate with, and I think what helps is our monthly meetings, they get that opportunity, they get that protected space where they can, bounce ideas off each other on how you would handle, we put scenarios before them. So I think that's been helpful as well.
So could we maybe get a copy of just something?
We'll send it to you. blessing
Okay.
that have been created. Yes, sir.
That's all my questions. I do appreciate all your hard work. I know it's something that we just kind of put on as a constraint, and I know there's a first report, but I feel like we're making leaps and bounds, and at least the focus now. I think everybody understands the importance. So thank you all.
Thank you. Before I go back to you, Mrs. Flores, is there anyone else who would have the floor? Mrs. Prado.
Thank you. The data that you just presented to us was basically from the high school and the middle school. Is that
And
correct?
the elementary.
And the elementary was a part of that? Okay.
First one.
Okay. So on the percentage at the elementary level, and if you could bring that slide up from the elementary, I'd like to see that. So this is elementary. At the elementary level, then it looks like there's 50%, no, 38% of it is non-guidance. What is that?
33.
33%, what does that entail? What at the elementary level is considered non-guidance?
It could be a parent visit. It could be a home visit. It could be just kind of like what Mr. Gallardo described, like last night's top 10, even though it's a counseling, that is considered non-guidance.
So other
Coordinating
functions.
speakers.
Other functions, right.
Okay. Or as they say, other duties as assigned. Okay, I think it's good, this is good to monitor, like you said, nor do you want to keep them, this is it, and that's.
I don't ever want us to say, no, that's not my job,
Right.
anyone. I mean, all of us are here for kids, so that's why I just kind of want to make sure that, that we maintain that.
Okay, and then the individual planning, is that only on cases that come up? Is that what that is
No.
for elementary?
No, at the high school level, the goal is to plan with every student.
Okay, we're talking about the elementary level.
Oh, at Garden Elementary. Well, particularly, there's heightened focus on our McKinney dental students, our homeless students. I mean, those are most at risk. So there are targeted students that are monitored more closely, maybe revisited, they visit with them more often. So again, the goal there for elementary is guidance lessons, small group lessons. But as students are in crisis, and as circumstances come up, that's where we do individual planning. It's the monitoring, so it depends as cases come up.
Do the counselors at the elementaries, because I think they used to, actually, like they used to go to the library with students and have a class per se, maybe about health awareness or
Being kind to
bullying or things like that?
They
Is that
don't-
something that they're doing now?
They don't pull them out, they go into the classroom. They don't necessarily pull them out. Now, they may have small groups. They may have small groups depending on, like, they see a need, of these, 10 kids, then they may have to do that, depending on the need.
Okay. Well, I think it's a good start. Thank you for your work. So I want to commend the counselors at the high school level because I attended the top 10 as well as Mr. Munguia, Ms. Flores. And the counselors, if it wasn't for them, our kids would not have the scholarships that they were able to get. It takes a lot of time, a lot of paperwork, and a lot of meeting with the parents and the students. Sometimes students don't want to sit there and do paperwork. And sometimes parents don't want to do it either. So it takes, the counselor has to take time from all the other things that you do to sit them down to make sure that there's a timeline. These things have to be done in time. How soon, how early on do you, the counselors, start counseling these students about grants and scholarships? Is it at the 9th grade level, or do you wait at the 10th grade?
We actually, and you might have been present at that meeting as well, Mr. Arlo, we had an 8th grade parent meeting, but we had an endorsement showcase, and we actually started talking to them at that point, at the high school. And I believe you were there, so we do that when we do talk about grants and FAFSA and scholarships and, taking advanced placement courses, advanced academics to make your resume look good. So I would say as early as you're going to go into the 8th to 9th grade.
And it was good to see some of those parents there, but like I said, sometimes 8th graders, they don't want to do paperwork, you have to depend on the parents. So I think the more contact you have with the parents, even starting at the early age. Because parents think, well, I can wait till they're juniors, to apply for grants and scholarships. And the biggest worry about a parent is money. Where am I going to get the money to send my child to college? So I think more time with the parent, especially starting at the 8th grade level, will have more successes at the end of their 4 years of high school. But I want to commend you. Thank you for doing a good job. And your counselors, not only there at the middle school and elementary as well.
And I do want to say that Ms. Melendez announced last night we were over $6 million in scholarships. New school record, or district record. And still growing, so gradually growing.
Oh, and one other thing, 1 million of the top 10. Right.
Okay, are there any other board members? Okay, so let me speak, Mrs. Flores, before I turn it back over. All right, so great job. I like this reporting. It really creates awareness, especially in our focus. But bringing it back to the Lone Star governance that we've learned this time around, and I want to thank you, board members, for attending and devoting your time to this framework that this district is implementing. And since it is the first year, it's a huge learning curve, and we're still working at it. So, as we know, and I think I've already spoken to this, but I wanted to say it publicly, this year is our baseline. So we're creating a baseline. And so in the areas of elementary, middle, and high school, this is an area I want y'all to focus on, is to determine, are we comfortable with these percentages that is at these levels, or do we want to tweak certain of the domains and make them either lower, higher, depending on what y'all decide, and increasing percentages on it. So we have to come up with annual targets, and we have in our language on that 2.1, it has to have from X to Y by Z. And so it has to be a long term. It could be 3, I believe, constraint is no less than 3 years. And so, again, this is a learning, this is not something we had, and so we just said increase by 20 because we didn't know what we were kind of looking at anyways. And so, again, awareness creates focus, and so now we're here, and so now we know. And so that is something that I'd like the counseling team to come up with. Were they satisfied with these, or did they realize, wow, I didn't realize that we were only spending 5% in individual planning at elementary level. And I mean, it increases dramatically, at middle school and high school. The non-guidance kind of stays the same in each of the, kind of decreased at the high school level. And so that's something to look at, was that sufficient? Do we need more? Do we need less? And so that's something done at the administration level. And so that was it. And then also, board members, we are wanting an academic workshop to cover our goals and progress measures to kind of align them based on what we learned this year. And I'm done with that. I'm done with me, so now back to Mrs. Flores.
I just wanted to follow up on a question that Mr. Ibarra said, and I think I addressed it to Mr. Zamora, on the number of schools that may be sharing a counselor. I think you said 4. Well, I looked under, again, policy, FFEA legal, indicates that a district with 500 or more students enrolled in elementary school grades shall employ a certified school counselor for each elementary school, and at least 1 school counselor for each 500 elementary school students. So I don't know which campuses those are. If they're under 500, then that probably meets the policy, but if they have over 500 students, that might not meet the policy. I just wanted to caution that with that.
Okay, are there any other board members? All right, so this section is now closed. Thank you. All right, so the next section is presentation reports, discussion number 2, presentation number 4 on the 2018-2019 budget presentations. And we do have quite a few of our citizens in that section. So I'm going to begin with Leonor Alvarez. But before we begin, please come up to the podium. I'm going to have our legal give the guidance on what those conversations can be.
Yes, ma'am, good evening. At a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, members of the public will have the opportunity to address the Board of Trustees during this section on the agenda item or any subject within its jurisdiction, except the matter related to pending litigation. Each speaker should sign in on the public comment sheet available at the Board of Trustees meeting. Speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes. The Board of Trustees may, if any member deem it necessary, limit both the number of speakers and the time allotted to each speaker upon motion and a second by any other member. Under the law, the board may only take action on items specifically listed on the agenda. Subject matter presented, which is not part of the agenda, will be referred to the appropriate department for review and subsequent action. Therefore, the Board of Trustees may not take formal action on any requests made during the public comment period. If they're not on the agenda, we can refer such requests to school staff for review if appropriate. No rules of decorum are expected. No specific names of employees are allowed, and for the crowd, the board should not tolerate disruption of the meeting by members of the audience or individual board members. Persons attending board meetings shall not delay, interrupt, or disrupt the proceedings or refuse to obey the orders of the presiding officer. Any disruption will result in the immediate removal of members of the public and possible action of the board to remove disruptive individual board members. Thank you.
Okay, and so I'm sorry, we don't have our time cards. Do we need to wait or can we? Okay, so Ms. Guerra's going to hold something up to let you know that you have a minute left. Okay? And so, Ms. Alvarez, you may begin.
Okay, good morning, evening school board members. My name is Nora Alvarez, and I have worked for the San Antonio Child Nutrition Department for 32 years. I have seen and experienced many changes in the Child Nutrition Department. I have changed the Child Nutrition Department, all positive, with the students' best interest in mind. In your pockets are copies of student surveys, food sampling with the high school students, and pictures of what the food means, of what looks like. The menu, we have more variety, includes more fruits and vegetables than ever before. We frequently collaborate with all students by sampling new menus, items that we're considering adding to the new menus. Students give us a feedback to help us make our decisions for the new food menu or ideas. 3 years ago, we used paper surveys to get feedback from the students. We become more innovative now than we have an app on our website to get feedback from students, parents, and our teachers. We also go out to the schools during meal service to visit our students. We ask them to complete online questionnaires about our food, about our favorite fruits and vegetables, grain, and entrees are. We offer a device menu or breakfast. The breakfast menu includes items such as barbacoa tacos, homemade sweet potato square, and crispitos. The lunch menu includes menu items like pulled pork tacos with guacamole, taco salad, crispy chicken sandwich, fresh made salad and sandwich, homemade salsa, and carne guisada tacos. I'm here to ask you to please not to make the decision to contract out the Child Nutrition Department. Thank you for your time.
Cynthia Rangel.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Saliza. My name is Cynthia Rangel. I have worked in the Child Nutrition Department for 27 years. I have a few points that I'm going to express to you about the food service. The food service management companies are for-profit businesses, and their number one goal is to make money. Our department is financially self-supporting, and making money must not take precedence over the nutritional needs of our children and our students. We have maintained a healthy fund balance to purchase equipment we need and outsource kitchen repairs and improvements to the kitchen and school cafeterias. Our department contributed to the general fund for utilities and for 1/3 of some of the district administrative and clerical positions. We also contributed $200,000 to the general fund for repair of campus air conditioning units. We have received perfect audit from the Texas Department of Agriculture for the past 3 times we were audited. In 2009, 2010 to 2010, 2013, 2014, and 2016 and 2017 school year. The decision to outsource our department should not be made lightly, as it may not be in the best interest of the district or its students. Please, please don't make the decision to contract out our child nutrition department. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, school board members. My
I'm
name
sorry.
is Angela Rodriguez.
Let me call you out. Angela Rodriguez, but before the citizens to be heard for this particular section has to do with the budget. The contract is not on the agenda, okay? So please say your language in reference to the budget. Okay? Thank you. You may begin.
You can stop me. Good evening, school board members. My name is Angela Rodriguez, and I work in the child nutrition department. On Friday, May 11th, we were told in a mandatory meeting with the CFO that you were considering some changes within our department to help minimize the deficit that the district is facing. We were also told that you might have had complaints or wanted a more diverse menu options for students to choose from. Those are unreasonable reasons to make changes within our department and look in other areas. Because, as Ms. Renthill said, we are a self-funded department and we don't utilize money from the general fund. So that's why we want to know, why do you want to make changes to the child nutrition department? Why not consider other areas? Why us? If the school board wants a more diverse menu, we can do it. If someone complains, we can fix it. We want communication with administrators so we can do what's expected of us. If there are complaints about the food, we want to know. If we don't know that there's a problem, then we can't fix it. Our goal is to prepare nutritious meals made from quality products that our students want to eat and nourish their minds for learning. We want to remain as we are. We want to continue working as South San ISD employees. We don't want you to make changes. Thank you for your time.
Eloy Velez, the third.
Good evening, board president, members, superintendent, and the district attorney. My name is Eloy Velez III. I have served as a police officer for the South San ISD Police Department for 2 years. Today I come before you to address a proposal to eliminate positions within the South San Antonio ISD Police Department. In recent years, school safety has become a very important topic. If students and educators are to achieve their full potential, schools must be safe and feel safe. Students who report feeling safe in schools are more engaged in class, have higher academic achievements, and have lower rates of absenteeism, truancy, and behavioral issues. Educators that feel safe in schools are better to be able to focus on academics. Simply put, feeling safe in schools is a result in high achieving educational outcomes for students. Our officers and command staff work beyond the call of duty to see that our students, staff, and community feel safe and protected at all times. Although preventing and responding to school-based crime is our department's primary focus, our officers help to foster positive relationships with educators and youth. This assists with promoting a positive school environment and safety for the community. To help better understand exactly why our police department is truly a valuable resource, I'd like to discuss a few important duties, some well-known and others not so much, of South San Antonio ISD police officers. Officers patrol the district and provide police services to citizens. 17 facilities that include the administration building, Hazen and Athens, although they're closed, and the district warehouse. We patrol school property to deter criminal offenses such as fire, burglary, theft, vandalism, and other unauthorized activities. All officers and police administration are certified in active shooter training. Our police administrators are also responsible for investigating internal investigations. Our police administrators are also responsible for the review process, security, and confidentiality of all police records and criminal justice database. Police administrators work 24/7 and are responsible for providing the leadership and guidance to all South San Antonio ISD police officers needed to bring incident investigations and to request a satisfactory conclusion. In an overall picture, what our police department does complements what the district requires. Our police administrators mirror the principal of each campus. Our district police officer mirrors the teachers and educators of all campuses. Our dispatcher and secretary mirror the secretaries and admin personnel responsible for those above who visit the campus on day in, day out. We, the police department and school administrators, rely on each other to ensure that we provide what South San community needs and a safe environment. Currently, the South San Antonio ISD Police Department has a total of 18 officers, to which include the command staff. In the 2017-2018 school year, there have been over 900 cases handled by our department, which 98 of those cases ending in arrest, with several involved felony crimes. By eliminating any police officers or the police administration staff, this would be depleting our resources that could be utilized to help our students and staff.
Your time's up. Okay, the next person is Carlos Zamora.
My name is Carlos Zamora. I'm an officer of Dwight Middle School. I am one of the 2 campus officers. I'm a graduate of South San, 1990 graduate. I came back to my community to serve my community. To hear that we're going to start losing officers, it's a safety issue. Reducing police officers is a risk not only to the officer's safety, but the safety of our students and our community. Losing one more officer will fail this district. Third shift and weekends have already been cut, keeping the district property at risk. Do research. When our district isn't occupied with officers, things happen. Criminals can do things to start other problems. The questions I have are, what are your plans for the officers when we reduce, when we have a need for assistance? Without any dispatchers, we're there to assist us when we need help. Where are we going to get the help? I can't stop in the middle of something to call 911 for SAPD to come and back me up. Our radios that we have are obsolete. They're walkie-talkies. If I press a panic button, nobody's coming. I can depend on my brothers to hear me and know where I'm at and to get to me. If we get rid of our investigators, the one investigator we have, it's going to make it more difficult for us to do our job. Are you going to provide the training for us to become investigators? He does a lot more than just what we do. This year, 2 officers on our campus, we've had 147 case reports. Types of reports include the assaults, theft, controlled substance, criminal trespassing, fighting, terroristic threats. We're not just responsible for the preliminary reports, we're also responsible for putting the packets together for offenses to be forwarded to a detective. We do primary investigation of crimes, look for evidence, videos, assist campus administrators. We make ourselves available to the students. We talk to the students for any number of reasons. A lot of it is to try to prevent harm to them. They come to us. You do more than just enforce the law. One thing I do, I can tell you, is the training that I receive is my training.
I paid my training. I used my vacation time. That's to make me a better officer for our students, for our district. I don't complain about that. I do it because I know it's the right thing to do. It's to provide my community with better services. The one thing I've learned from my academy was that everybody goes home at the end of our shift. That includes our students, faculty, and staff. When they go home safely, I did my duty for the day. Without us, limiting us, you're going to cause problems. Thank you for your time.
Mario Hinojosa?
If I could admit,
I'm sorry, we don't pass any minutes. And so I'd like for you to take the podium.
good evening, board members. Most of my in-laws have been with the district for 27 years. I started with the district with the police department opened up in 92, excuse me. Looks like we're going backwards, we're not going forward. I worked every shift in both high schools for the last 27 years, including West Campus, over 10 years. We have a lot of things going on in the district after hours and on weekends. We have a lot of break-ins. We have some break-ins lately. We only have one officer on the weekends, on the weekdays, and that's all we got. And so over the last 2 years, we only have one officer, not 5. We've been going on like that a couple of years. But other than that, right now we cut it out on the weekends, or we do after hour shifts. Guys at night on the weekend shift, on the evening, they do get called for everything. So we do have a lot of things going on in the high schools. We got other activities going on, practices, meetings, and all that we got going on here. Also middle school, we have things going on after hours. We don't shut down at 4:30. It continues. Whatever happens, our officer can call to it, even though he's by himself sometimes. The city officer won't be out there unless he's already through whatever he's doing with. It takes him 15, 20 minutes by the time he gets there. Our officers are working, double time. As other shifts going on, we have things like break-in. We have, the other day we had an accident on Somerset Road, a major accident. The driver took off. Where did he end up at? At the high school. The officers saw him there. The question is, find out who he was. They were part of the accident. The city didn't want to take him in, but we towed the vehicle. The passenger himself had warrants. We took him in for warrants. She was released with more investigation on the terror with SIP. But like I said, there's other things happening in the district around here besides during the day. You got a lot of stuff going on. You think there's gangbangers out there they want to be. I dealt with them for 20-some years. You got different types, they'll call themselves different names, Blood, Clips, Southside Blood, 93 and all that. Yeah, we got these schools. And we have to deal with them. A lot of them I deal with their bigger brothers, big sisters, even parents. Fights we had last year, there were kids continuing with the fights that's been going on for years. But we have to deal with it. And I understand we do have counselors, they do help, principals do help, but the officers themselves sometimes have to deal with it after hours by ourselves, and we do take care of things. And we do make arrests at nights. And in the evening for these short nights. But other than that, thank you for having me out here. Thank you, Marshall. We do need the officers. They're here to help you out. We're here to serve the community, serve you, serve faculty and staff also. Along with safety is okay. Thank you.
Mr. Tom Cummings, do you have any budget-related issues?
I've got about 4 or 5 issues. Can I speak?
Any related to the budget?
Yes.
Okay, you can have the floor.
Can I speak later on the other
Yes,
stuff?
sir.
Okay.
It'll be a combined 3 minutes.
Okay.
So if you take your full 3 minutes, you're not able to speak at the,
I can be real quick.
okay. You may.
I want money. Just real quickly, number one of the things we talked about with the superintendent is we'd like to pay raise for all employees in the district this year. And we understand the budget cuts. We also understand that you are considering a tax recertification election. And should you so approve that, and should that pass, what we've requested with the superintendent is that there be a 4% one-time employee payment. One time meaning a year, but it'd actually be divided into 2 supplements, half in August, half in December, and that be contingent upon TRA passing. We do support the cafeteria not being in the budget, and we would ask that the study be pulled back, and being superfluous and very distracting. And we do support the police officers. They've listed what they do. Think about things that would happen if they're not there. Thank you. Who's not that?
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
E. Cruz.
Ma'am, I passed. I was with them as well.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Alderete, do you have a specific agenda item that you'd be speaking to? Does it relate to the budget?
So if I speak now, so you can clarify, because I think a lot of people were confused in here about that. So if I speak now with the budget, this is going to cut out my time for just the regular board meeting?
Okay, so is that,
So I can lump whatever I have to say to this into the end?
so that's why I'm asking if you have a concern in relationship to any of the agenda items. You can speak to, and currently we're on the budget.
I'll wait until the end so I can use my 4 minutes.
Okay. And then Nancy Cavazos.
Hi, my name is Nancy Cavazos. I have been an employee for South San ISD for the past 14 years, 5 years as a manager cafeteria at Benavides Elementary. And with all these changes that we've been hearing about our department, my concern is my kids. Not myself, my kids. Is anybody thinking our kids? We are here for our kids. There's a lot of kids in my campus with special diets. Consider those special diets. They deserve that food and they deserve it. Is others thinking for those kids? I know I am. My concern are those kids. As a manager that I've been for that cafeteria, me and my family, which is our department, we consider those kids like our kids. Because that's our community. Those are our kids. We are here for them. That's my concern. Allergies, there's a lot of things to think of, not just moving us on and bringing somebody else into our department. We have worked hard daily, morning to evening, more than enough, more than what we're supposed to. We're very dedicated. Our department is a very dedicated personnel. We have gone far and beyond to be where we are. We have worked hard. We go in at 6 o'clock, sometimes we're there by 5:30, 5:35. We're not supposed to. And I'm here saying that I'm one of them. I'm a very dedicated manager with a lot of responsibilities. I turn in my responsibilities before that time. Why? Because I am there for my kids daily, morning, lunch. You guys are more than welcome to go to any of our campuses and try our menus. You don't need to search for ideas. You have all the ideas. All our menus are online. we go far and beyond for our community, for our kids. I have my kids my own in this district. We need to show those kids to appreciate what we're serving them, not ideas. We give it out to them. Our menus are full with vegetables, fruit, you name it, carne guisada. I want first place. I'm there, I want first place. I have that molcajete in my kitchen. That salsa thing, I love it. You name it, you don't have to go nowhere. We have it on salsa, you see. Why bring anybody down here? We're the best ones. Clean kitchens, we all have clean kitchens. We all get that 100 in our inspection twice a year. Twice a year, 100. I'd like to go to restaurants. Not all restaurants have 100 like we do. I'm very, very proud of who I am, what I do. Cafeteria workers, we're the number one in this district. Number one. This is my family right here.
Thank you,
We
ma'am.
spend more
We
time
appreciate
with them
you.
than with our own family at home. Thank
Okay, Dr. Silva, presentation number 4.
Okay, Mr. Sawada's presentation number 4.
Good evening, members of the board. Tonight's presentation is going to be pretty similar to what's been presented already. Just going over the same issue. So here we have our slide with our trend on student enrollment. As you can see, in 2013-14, we had a little over 10,000 students. With our projections for 18-19 going back to 8,600. There's a loss of about 14% of students, over 1,400 students. That being said, this next slide, we're showing our budget projections. So the way the district gets funded is by student ADA, which is tied to, of course, student enrollment. So as we lose students, we continue to lose revenue. This coming 18-19 year, without a TRE, our revenue projections is going to be $71,436,000. Our 17-18 adopted budget, we adopted it back in August of 2017 with $76,237,000. With the addition of new programs for the 18-19 year at a cost of $1.6 million. Our total appropriations without any changes to our budget at this point would be $77.8 million. That would be a loss of $6.4 million due to the loss of revenues. With the TRE, our revenues would go up to $77.7 million. That would leave us with a loss of only $126,000. Again, that's with no changes to our budget. The overall increase to revenue with the TRE is estimated at a $6.3 million. Now, if we look at this next slide, it's the same information, but we went in and we included the reductions that we would expect to do with and without a TRE. So the revenues, of course, stay the same without a TRE at $71.4 million. Our beginning budget again was $76 million with additional program costs of $1.6 million. For the 18-19 reductions that we would anticipate at this point would add up to $5.1 million. Again, the board did approve the administration to use our fund balance to offset some of our losses. The items that were identified as things that would be covered by that $1 million were areas like our reading teachers, our librarians to library aides, our RNs to LVNs. Those were all the areas that we used those $1 million to cover that expense. Campuses were left with a reduction of, or Elementaries were left with a reduction of $55,000 that they had to find in their budget. A dollar amount like that meant a staffing unit. Campuses have submitted their recommendations to administration as far as the units that they would eliminate from their campus. Middle schools was around 70,000, and high schools did not have any reductions as we didn't anticipate any loss of students at the high school. With the TRE, our revenues, of course, would be $77.7 million. The reduction piece does change. It goes down to $2.8 million, leaving us with a surplus of 1.2. The new programs, I did skip that, I apologize. The new program actually goes up to $3 million because it does include a portion of a compensation package of only 1.5%. So in the next budget presentation, if district administration proposes a 4% with the TRE, we will update those numbers. Again, our increase in revenues is $6.3 million overall with the TRE. Here's a modified summary of identified reductions based on the comments I gave a little while ago. So we have taken campus administration's recommendations as far as the reductions that would happen at their campuses. In the general administrative area, we would lose approximately 14 units at an estimated reduction of cost of $741,000. In the facility area, we would lose about 11 units for a reduction of $433,000. The Department of Safety would lose 13 units for a reduction of cost of almost $550,000. And then, of course, teachers that are lost is due to the enrollment loss. We estimate about 19 teaching units would be eliminated because of the enrollment decline at a reduction of cost of $1.1 million. The campus recommendations that came in would reduce at the elementary level 5 music teachers at a reduction of $300,000. 2 counseling units, again, those would be split, counselors would be split at 4 campuses at a reduction of $137,000. 2 assistant principals at the middle schools at $143,000. 1 librarian at almost $61,000. 1 nurse to LVN at $25,000. 1 officer at almost $46,000, and 4 instructional aides at $92,000, and 1 stipend at $10,000. The district-wide reductions adds up to almost $1.5 million for the reduction of $5.1 million. If we do have a TRE, the recommendations do change. At the administrative level, we would only reduce 10 units at a cost reduction of $524,000. On the facility size, it does stay the same. In the Department of Safety, it does go down to 11 units. The reduction is $494,000. On the teachers, and I think the teachers stays the same. The music teachers aren't reduced. Counselors, there's no reductions. We still have 2 assistant principal reductions. There is no reduction of a librarian or a change from a nurse to an LVN. The officer at the middle school would still be reduced, and 2 instructional aides would still be reduced. The district-wide reductions is a negative because we did have some campuses that decided that they would continue to reduce additional positions so that they could put those funds back into their discretionary budget for supplies or services that they felt were that they needed. The total reduction with the TRE adds up to $2.8 million. The South San tax ratification election, if the district were to adopt a 13-cent tax rate increase, would give the district $6.4 million or $6.3 million. The percentage of the the percentage of the revenue gained is 6.4, is 12% out of the homeowners, which adds up to approximately $800,000. The state and the commercial or property, business property taxes would add up to about 87.5% of the additional revenue gained by a 13-cent tax increase. This slide shows us that the districts that surround South San at this time, and as you can see, all the districts surrounding us has already adopted the tax rate of $1.17. South San is still at the $1.04. An example is Harlandale. Harlandale had a TRE back in 2008 that was successful. With that TRE, Harlandale has been able to generate approximately $80 million since then for the education of their kids. The South San tax ratification election, how it impacts the individual homeowner. A home valued at $25,000 would see no cost increase because of the homestead exemption, $25,000. A home at $50,000 would see a per month cost increase of $2.71. A home at $75,000 would see a monthly cost increase of $5.42. And a home at $100,000 would see a cost increase of $8.13 a month. The tax rate increase would not impact those who are age 65 or older, as their property taxes are frozen if they own the home and if they have their exemption filed. Any questions or comments?
Okay, board members. The floor is open. This is not a Lone Star governance item, but because it is a budget, I will regulate the time allotted per individual. It's going to be relatively equal, and so it will exceed the 2 minutes. But know that we still have the rest of the meeting, so I want to be within that time frame of the 3-hour meeting. And so the floor is now open. Who would like to go first? I have Ms. Flores, then I have Mr. Ibarra, and then I have Mr. Buendia. Let's go ahead and begin with those. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Samar, I just have one question, and it's just very simple. Under the summary of identified reductions, without the TRE, you have stipend. What stipend would that be?
There was a campus stipend that was decided by the campus administrator. That was a stipend given to a staff of that campus.
At that campus, at that amount?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ibarra.
That answered one question. So that stipend was just campus specific, just one campus?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On safety, the positions are 13, they go down to 11, but your positions stay the same, 6 officers, 4 clerical, 3 admin. 6 officers, 4 clerical, 3 admin, but the dollar amount changes by.
So the position goes from a 3 admin to a 2 admin, and then a 4 clerical to a 3 clerical. You know what, I'm sorry, my presentation I gave to, I caught the error after the fact, so you are correct. In the presentation I provided to the board in the board packet, there was an error.
Oh, that's what I'm looking at, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, no, it's my fault.
It's okay.
The actual description piece of the 11 was inaccurate in the board book. It should be 2, 3, and 6.
2, 3, and 6.
My apologies.
I wasn't looking up there, I apologize. Counselors, so going back to the question on the counselors, so we do add those back in? The 2 because it says 0 with the TRE?
What gets added back in with a successful TRE, if you look at slide 5, the summary of the identified reductions, everything listed there as campuses, where we go, like for example, the music teachers going back, 0 teachers being removed, mistaken with counselors. The assistant principals remain the same as far as removing 2. Librarians go back to 0, nurse to LEN back to 0. We continue to remove 1 officer, and that's a recommendation by a principal, not a recommendation by the administration here. But anyway, that will list for you what comes back in if the TRE is successful.
Right. So the 2 VPs at the middle school level, is that where they're at?
Yes, I guess.
So even with the TRE, we'll want to add VPs back in?
Well, you know, it's a question of,
are we, because of the academies, I'm asking, is there a way that we use the directors to help, or, I mean?
Right. Actually, the academy directors becomes 1 additional administrative position, and therefore we remove an assistant principal as a result of that. Correct?
And they'll be
That is
evaluating.
right.
They'll be evaluating. Our coordinators are certified to evaluate teachers. So they'll be evaluating.
Okay, where does after-school programming fall in this budget?
So in the district-wide reductions, all the other, and the other presentations where we listed out the other programs that would be reduced if the TRE was unsuccessful, that goes into the district-wide reductions on the with TRE column, that is a negative number. So it would go down to 0, with the exception of the food service that services the administrative building. We would still eliminate that. But because the principal still decided to reduce additional staffing units, that, you know, they wanted to put that money back into their 6,300, their supplies or services, that's why it's a negative.
Okay, that's with the TRE.
But everything else that was on our list previously would come back to our, but would be funded.
Okay.
So after school challenge, CIS, all those things that were on previous budgets would be funded.
My question on after-school challenge, because of the dates where we have to submit if we want help from the city or not, are kind of relevant to the conversation. Don't we have to turn that information in, or didn't we have to turn that information in?
The answer is yes. And really all the partnerships, whether it be after-school challenge, whether it be the CIS contract as well. I mean, there's various contracts like that we will need to consider at some point. It's a question of how much flexibility and leeway the partner, the other side, will provide us if we don't know the answer, you know, as to whether or not we would have the funding or not. And it's very possible that we come back to the board and saying, we sign this contract and have the service for next year, with or without the TRE, and we're committed. And we will let the board know this, you know, what you're putting at risk is whatever amount of money that would come out of fund balance should the TRE fail.
Right, okay.
You know.
So those conversations.
Yeah, they'll happen at some point moving forward.
Okay.
We're just now starting some of these conversations with some of our partners as to, you know, and some of these contracts actually have out clauses also. You know, we would have to be clear about what the out clause says and how we could exercise that in case we don't have the revenue to be able to fulfill the contract.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Mr. Munguia?
So going back to the non-salary reductions, the district-wide reductions, can you walk me through some of the programs, again, that would be at risk with cutting $1.4 million out of that budget?
So the items that have been in our previous presentations was CIS, After School Challenge, Swim to Learn, reduction of our capital improvement of $450,000. Of course, we had support teachers on there, whether it be music, reading, other. We had the 24-to-1 ratio.
Employee salaries.
And then, continuing employee competitive salaries.
And some of those programs that you mentioned, how popular are those with the children that use those programs?
CIS is very popular, after school is very popular, Learn to Swim for the students and families that participate popular. Going to a 24-to-1 will not be popular as far as teacher-student ratio. And I can tell you, maintaining competitive employee salaries, teacher salaries is very popular.
So I went to a neighborhood association meeting last night, and I was asked, where does that money go? So I would ask them to look at this slide and say that, without that TRE, that's 5 music teachers we have to tell to find another job. That's 2 counselors, that's a librarian, that's a nurse, that's 2 instructional aides. And that's all those programs that we just talked about that the kids have come to meetings and said, please save these programs. So I would say that if you are absolutely against the TRE and you don't want to see those cuts, you need to let us know where else we should cut aside from that. Because every reduction we look at, we're having people come here and tell us not to cut that department. But when it comes down to about $6.5 million worth of reductions, that's going to affect somebody. So I would just challenge anybody on this board or in the audience or the families that are watching to reach out to us, because this budget is still in development. This is not what is going to be passed tomorrow. There's still time to amend this, and there's going to be some more community meetings regarding the budget and the TRE. So this is the time now, if you have other solutions than what staff has identified, to come forward to those meetings and to contact us and let us know that.
Just for information, the community meetings you make reference to will be May the 23rd at Dwight Middle School at 6 p.m. and May the 29th at Sonora Middle School at 6 p.m.
Okay, anybody on this side? Mrs. Brown?
Thank you, Ms. Oshigi. Mr. Samara, every time we have a budget workshop, I keep all my copies in the notebooks. I reference what's the difference at each presentation. On your, when we first started the budget process, which was your workshop, actually number 3, you actually showed the projection for the 3-year M&O budget projection. And on here, the 2018-19 loss was going to come out to $6,445,736. But then you also projected, because this is a 3-year projection, that in 2019-20, that our loss would be $8,648,451. And that's based on, of course, on the loss of enrollment. And then on the next slide, in budget workshop number 3, you actually have your 3-year M&O budget projection with the TRE. And on that one, for the 2018-19, with the TRE, that we would still have a loss of $126,185. And then for 2019-20, you projected with the TRE that we would still be at a loss of $2,407,019. And that was from budget workshop number 3. So now on budget workshop number 4, I don't see that slide anymore.
Yes, we wanted to reduce it to give more of a summary since we have presented that information a couple of times. Just to comment on those slides were without any reductions, so that was taking it, it's a picture of this slide right here, slide 3, where we just show today's revenue, or the expected revenue versus today's budget with no changes, no modifications, or no reductions.
Right. Okay, so then on today's presentation, workshop number 4, with the TRE, it shows for the 18-19 school year that we would still be at a loss of $126,185, and that's with the TRE.
Okay,
So
yes.
do you have one for the 19-20 school year?
No, on this slide we were just concentrating.
Just concentrating on this.
on
So
the-
you did away with the projection then?
Yes.
I see. Okay. Another question to Dr. Swether. Dr. Swether, I know we're at budget workshop number 4, and we don't actually approve the budget until August. Is that correct? Well, maybe sooner. We're hoping.
It could be sooner, but it's got to be done by August 31st.
By August 31st. So do we plan on having another budget workshop?
I think it may be at the request of the board. you know, things are changing slightly, but not real significantly as we build this budget.
Right.
I guess we're at the pleasure of the board, whether or not you want to have another workshop review next month in June, or to wait until July. You know.
Right. Okay. Because we usually have them at least until, we've always had them until August. But then I think we had decided, let's not wait till August. We want to have the budget finalized before then, so that the campuses will have their budgets when they come back instead of having to wait. So I think, unless it, you know, there's really not much change to what you're presenting today. In fact, it's
No,
just about
the only real changes was on the summary of identified reductions, because again, we got the campus recommendations as far as what they would recommend to reduce.
Right. And I just want to say something. Mr. Munguia was speaking about, you know, if anybody has input, we should come with suggestions on how to save. And even Dr. Savetta said, anyone wanted to come and meet with me and, you know, share your ideas. My suggestion was that we form a committee with representatives from each district to let them come up with ideas. Our district have diversified. We have retired teachers, we have retired principals, we have retired superintendents, and I'm sure with their past experience, they have knowledge on how to save money without having to go through a TRE. And I think a committee, if we form a committee, even if you just have one meeting, then everybody in the district has input. Instead of maybe, I don't know, Ms. Chapa comes and meets with you and says, these are my ideas. Well, where's that going to go? Probably nowheres. But if you have a committee of the investors that are going to end up voting on this, I think that gives you more substance, and they probably have more ideas. So unless there's a committee formed, I just don't see how this is going to change anything.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Are there any other board members? Okay, I do. Okay. And so, based on the average of the initial board, Ms. Connie set a 5-minute timeline. And so, I'm going to begin. So, Dr. Savetta, we had the officers come in. We had the food service, but I don't think that's an issue because that's not under contract and it's not being affected by the budget. Am I correct?
Correct. You're correct, and it does not affect the budget directly, but it will affect the budget indirectly.
Okay, and clarify.
Well, the clarification is if an outside company manages the food service department, for example, that means our central administration does not manage it, and we eliminate a certain level of workload from the HR department, for example, from our payroll department, from different departments like that. You know, there are some reductions built into this budget in HR, for example. You know, so while it does not directly impact it, it indirectly does impact it.
But it's a positive.
Well, if it is outsourced,
it
would indirectly impact it on the positive side.
Okay, but that's for a different day.
Right.
Okay, so what is being identified as a reduction was our Department of Safety, and I want to thank all the officers that were here.
Right.
And so one of the concerns that I heard was, what are the plans for the officers who will be staying and for the reduction of the 6 officers?
Okay.
So what is the plan?
All right. I start with simply stating that South San has the highest officer-student ratio in Bexar County, of any school district in Bexar County. We have more officers on a per-student basis than any other school district in Bexar County. The proposed reductions are not reductions of officers assigned to the school level. The officers assigned to the schools, when students are there, remain the same. The officers that, or the positions that are being recommended for possible reductions are positions that do not impact the safety of students while they're in school on a day-to-day basis. The district is actually exploring other options for the supervision and review of facility concerns or facility care on an after-school basis. You might recall, just to give you an example, that last year we looked in a different direction in reference to how we provided services for the disciplinary students that were at the alternative school. We basically contracted with another school district. They basically provided that service for us. We have paid for it, but we also reduced our costs in that particular program probably by 3/4. We think there's a similar opportunity in the oversight and supervision of our facilities on an after-school basis. A real quick example of this would be one of these reductions happens to be the reduction of the dispatchers. On weekends, holidays, 24/7, we've had in the past a dispatcher sitting in that office waiting for a call. Edgewood does the same thing. Harlandale does the same thing. Southside does the same thing. Southwest does the same thing. And you basically have in this particular area 5 or 6 dispatchers sitting waiting for their call. So 5 or 6 school districts are paying for those positions. There's no reason why districts working collaboratively with each other can simply not basically contract with each other for that service. You know? And so we've actually have started some negotiations with one school district in reference to dispatcher services, for example. All right. So it is not our intent to leave our facilities unattended. It is our intent to provide this oversight in a more efficient way. So that's really what we're looking at.
Okay, so you've said through these budget presentations you want more feedback.
Right.
And so based on that feedback given at presentation number 1 through 3 has built the budget to now, correct? Okay. And so can I have a rough number of how much is the 6 officers amount? Do we know that?
These 6 officers,
Out of the 494,000, do we know what? And I'm sorry, I should have provided this question before.
approximately 270, 280.
Which is the bulk of the amount. Okay. So then if the board decided to leave the officer positions, then about 200,000 would now fall under the district-wide reduction, which is basically programs.
Yes, ma'am.
And so at that cost, we would be reducing opportunities for our students in the programs that were named, in addition to those programs.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Wow, that's tough. And the overall reason why we're having to reduce is because, could someone ask? I mean, I know we all know it, but could you please say it again? Why do we have to reduce this amount?
The loss of students.
So ultimately, to run a successful district, our customer satisfaction is number 1. And our customers is our students. And so with the stability of this current administration, and I say stability because Dr. Saavedra, how long have you been here?
4.5 years.
4.5 years prior to me coming onto this board. And so that was one of the reasons why TEA came in, because there was no stability. A lot of turnovers. And because now we have a superintendent who's been here 4.5 years, we have administration who's been here along his tenure. And so with that, we're bringing stability. But now we're needing to focus on our customers, which is the students. And so this board has basically said, we're implementing a theory of action a system of great schools. And what that means is bringing programs and opportunities for our students to succeed beyond K through 12. This is beyond, in their life, whether that be a career, whether that be a college education, or whether that be in the military. And so to achieve that, we need to instill better programs or increase resources for the programs that are doing a great job. And so with that, board, these decisions that we're making is not easy. Staff, we take your positions to heart. We understand. I have a position outside of this board. And you know what? I made an analogy. There will always be 7 board members if there's 200 students in a district. Because I've met districts with 200 students from K to 12, and there are 7 board members. And the reason for that is because we are unpaid positions. So we do not affect the revenue that the budget is about. We do make those decisions. And that is why this board is following a framework of the Lone Star governance where we're getting community input. And so I know Mrs. Prado has advised that she'd like to see a committee formed, but I also want to say or ask Dr. Saavedra, what has resulted in you meeting with specific individuals that wanted to speak with you? Has that happened?
No, I've invited various individuals to set up meetings with me. Every time we meet, I make the comment, bring me your ideas, and up to this point, I've received none.
Okay. So that's my 5 minutes. And so second round, well first before the second round, I have 2 board members left that if you have any comments or concerns, this is the time to do so, or I'll begin the second round. Mr. Rodriguez.
Excuse me. I apologize for that. Those of you that know, I went through a traumatic experience here about a month ago. Excuse me. And, well, excuse me if I spit or whatever. I'll explain later. Anyway, I want to just piggyback on what the board president said. This is about the kids. I mean, bottom line, that is the whole thing. Okay, now maybe I can cover the sympathy thing. No, this is about the kids. It's all about the students. It's about if we want to implement new programs for them to improve their lives, if we want to keep existing programs in place to improve their lives, to guarantee success, if we want to have quality teachers for them, if we want to have buildings for them that, are air conditioned in the summer or in the winter, everything is for them. It's all about them. Maybe they may not get the money directly, but it affects them. It affects them. It's just like a family unit. You have both spouses working, let's say, okay? But who are they working for? For the family, for the kids. This is the same thing. It's for the kids. It's for the benefit of the children. Now, you saw some of the figures, how it's going to affect the cost of your house. Well, is $8 and whatever cents a month worth it for the kids? I mean, you have to ask yourselves that. Is it worth it? Are you willing to pay an extra $8.63 a month or whatever it was for the kids, to benefit the kids? That's what this is about. So here it is. Yes, I do, or no, I don't. So what does that say either way? Again, answer it yourselves. For the kids, no, I don't care about it. It comes down to that. Very simple. We're trying to make it complicated, but it's very simple. We all have issues I've been made aware of issues with different people, but it's not about that. It should not be about that. It shouldn't be because I don't like that person or whatever. That's why I'm not gonna care. I don't want this thing to pass or whatever. It's the kids. You have to keep that in mind. It's the kids. That's one of the reasons I got on this board. I volunteered for it because I wanted to do my best to help improve, to help make sure that the children of this district had an opportunity to be successful in life. So are we going to deprive them of that? Deprive them of that? It's your call. It's not our call. It's your call. But I'm going to tell you where I stand. I think they deserve every opportunity that they can get. And we need to help them with that.
Ms. Getter? Okay, second round. Mr. Munguia, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I would just say that one of the first things I want to say is that we already do have a citizens committee that is allowed to offer suggestions for the budget, and they are representative of the entire district, and we're sitting up here. So as individual office holders, we can meet with anybody we want to, hold any groups we want to have, meet with anybody we want to offer suggestions to the rest of the board and to staff. We're going back to these summary identified reductions. If anybody, if they're a former teacher, if they're a board member, if they're a parent, or they're a concerned neighbor, can tell me how we can make up $6.5 million without cutting anything here, I'm all ears. Because I'm going to ask for the names of all the people that we have to cut if we don't have the TRE, or if we do have the TRE. And that's going to be weighed on my conscience, and that's going to be the result of what the community tells us what to do. If the TRE passes or it fails. We will have a mandate from the community to make those reductions happen. So if a kid comes to me and says, Mr. Munguia, why did you get rid of CIS? That meant the world to me. I'm going to say, well, your community said you could do without that $6.5 million. So I just want everyone to understand that, and if there's a way to achieve that without passing the TRE, having all the great stuff we want to have, I'd like to know right now what it is. So that's all I'm saying.
Mrs. Brother, you wanted a second round?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I think I wanted to just once more ask the question. At the presentations, this year we're going to be at a deficit of $6 million. And even with the TRE passing, we will still have a deficit next year.
No, that is not correct. Again, those slides only show a budget with no changes to our budget. With the reductions, let me go to the right side. This is our budget with the recommended budgets, whether we have a TRE or not. So without a TRE and our reductions that we're recommending, we would have a loss of $1.2 million. With a TRE, we would have a surplus after giving a 1.5 incentive of a surplus of $1.2 million.
And so my next question is, it's the projection by superintendent is that we are going to have another loss of 500 kids next year. That's what's being projected. So with the additional loss of 500 kids, that's going to add to our deficit next year.
No.
So you may have a surplus now if the TRE passes, but if you lose 500 more kids, then that's going to add to it.
No, for the 18-19 year, we've already incorporated a loss of 500 students.
So, and we still don't know for sure. I mean, that's just your projection.
No, we don't know. It could be less, it could be more.
Could be more, exactly. So we don't really know.
But with the TRE, again, nothing's decided on a compensation. And it's a one-time compensation. And the reason that makes sense for a district in a decline is because that additional $1.5 million, basically that takes us from 1.6 million to 3 million in slide 4, that would come back to our surplus column in a subsequent year. So you can look at it from the standpoint of we really have $2.8 million surplus going into 1920, and our projected loss for 1920 was $2 million. So we would still be in a positive situation going into 1920.
So then if if you're saying all this is gonna be peachy and rosy and everything, then why are you looking at, and this has to do with the budget, why is it even brought up that to go out and outsource the cafeteria? If, from what I'm hearing, it's more cost efficient, and that is the reason why these meetings were held, were to outsource. So if there isn't a problem and we're gonna be okay, why is this necessary?
Because we've lost, with next year's projection of 500 students by August, we have lost 14% of our enrollment. The district needs to explore how to more efficiently operate. We're basically serving 14% fewer students. We need to, matter of fact, you're one of the strongest advocates for reducing administration and reducing costs because we have reduced in enrollment. The outsourcing of food service, as I stated earlier in the meeting, is something that we're simply looking at to see if there are some efficiencies. There may or may not be efficiencies there. I anticipate we may look at other departments as well to see if there's efficiencies by outsourcing. Outsourcing has resulted in budget efficiencies in many districts across the country. It may impact us that way or may not, but we're simply exploring that.
And just to give you a little historical data, and I think some of the employees that have been here a long time, South San outsourced back in 1988. We actually outsourced the custodial department. And it actually cost the district more money, and the employees did not keep their job, and the employees that had been here for years did not carry over those years because they had to work for the company then. So you lose those years that you have in service. So this is not a good thing. I know you said this, we're just looking at it.
I'm going to pause you there because we're not talking about a contract, we're not talking about outsourcing. And the dollar amount is not on this 2018-2019 budget summary, correct?
Correct.
And so the discussion, bring it back to the 2018-2019 budget summary.
Then let me talk to the closing of the schools, because that has to do with the budget. We did, supposedly we saved, I think it was $3.9 million when we closed the 2 schools.
Correct.
But when that first came up, it was just an idea. Let's go out and see what would happen. Is it cost efficient to close schools? It wasn't really intended to close schools, but the same thing is happening now with our food service department. Let's just go out and see if it's cost efficient. You know, and then what happened? The schools got closed. So there's got to be other ways to save money. Our taxpayers should not have to be burdened with the overcount that was sent over to TEA. There's other ways to save money, I'm sure. And I think the community should have an opportunity to speak up and come up with recommendations, and not on a one-to-one. I think as a group, it's more effective than it is just one person coming to me and me then coming to you. Is not, it's not good. You should all come together and make a decision, or at least come up with suggestions and ideas on how to do that. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Anyone else? On the second. So this section is now closed. The next is the consent. And so, policy BE local states that the consent agenda shall include items of a routine and/or recurring nature grouped together under one action item. All such items shall be acted upon by one vote without separate discussion unless a board member requests that an item be withdrawn for individual consideration. The remaining items shall be adopted under a single motion and vote. So there are 6 items. Number 1, approval of board meeting minutes, time management laws, and board tracker. Number 2, approve the addition of $30,000 in funding, the special education contract with Kids Treehouse Pediatrics Therapy for the 2017-2018 school year due to an increase in students qualifying for speech services. Number 3, creative learning systems, STEM, Smart Lab, learning environment for Dwight Middle School, STEM Academy. Number 4, additive membership, professional learning and curriculum. Number 5, approve the memorandum of understanding between South San ISD and the Alamo Community College District for the implementation of the South San Early College Academy to afford students opportunities to earn college credit. This is the only consent item that is an LSG. Number 6, approval of the May budget amendment. Do I hear a motion? Wait, I'm sorry. Do I hear any board members who'd like to pull out any items?
Yes, Madam Chair, number 6.
Will there be any more? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve as presented number 1 through number 5?
I so move.
Okay.
Second.
A motion has been made by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mr. Ibarra. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Mrs. Prado, number 6.
Thank you. I wouldn't have any questions because it was my understanding Judge Sveda was going to pull this item.
It is being pulled. There's no action being requested at this point.
Okay, so number 6 is no being pulled, so no motion is needed. We're now on the discussion and possible action. Number 1, approve the SSAISD 2018-2023 Strategic Design Framework. This is an LSG item. Dr. Saavedra.
I'm going to call Linda Castro to walk you through this. Ms. Castro.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So what you have before you is the South San Antonio ISD Strategic Design Framework starting from 2018 through 2023. I'd just like to remind the board of how we did our process, which was the same process we've done in the past, where we started with our focus groups, getting input from students, parents, community members, business members of our community, teachers, principals, counselors, and before we did this, we had nothing, so we had to start from scratch. Now we had a base, and so basically what it is, it's just basically a streamlining and updating of what our existing plan was. So if you look at, do you want to pull it up? Sorry. So there was some kind of clarity and some language. There it is, okay. So if you notice I'll just point out our call to action. What was decided was kind of streamlining it and shortening it a little bit. So all students will enjoy successful education experiences, empowering them to make decisions while enriching their lives and the future they create. Notice it's very similar to the one that was previously adopted, but as we took it to the committee, hearing from students, hearing from everyone, they wanted that streamlined. So a lot of, if you look through this document, a lot of parental and promoting parental involvement and a lot more on student voice, student leadership. I'll just go to our core belief, the last one. Before it read, we believe strong leadership is essential. Now, if you notice, it says we believe strong and effective student and adult leadership is essential to build a culture of high expectations. So I know the board's had this for a while. We've been talking about this. Many of you participated on our committees and provided feedback. We've also already identified what we need to accomplish on year 1, which is specific results. So we're holding ourselves accountable to timelines, to making sure that we, we value what our community has given us and hold ourselves accountable to that. So I'll take any questions.
Okay, board, the floor is open. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns in relationship to the strategic design framework? Okay, I do. First of all, it was very dynamic. I enjoyed being part of the focus group. I enjoyed being part of the teams comprised of students, parents, and staff, teachers. So it was very dynamic. I was very impressed with our students that were selected. Right. One of them surprised me. He was only a middle school student, and I thought he was in high school. I mean, he was very articulate. His ideas were out of the box, very dynamic. So I applaud you for bringing it back around for a visit. And I also thank you, based on the Lone Star governance, we needed to visit our goals and to align our previous strategic design to model a collaborative effort. And so thank you for that. One of the questions I had was, both Dr. Saavedra and Delinda, what did you learn? Going the first time around and then the second time around?
From the first time, to be very honest, I was scared. I was wondering, you know, what kind of product when you gave up so much, because we gave up all, you know, it was completely input. I know Ms. Prado, you were there at many of those first meetings where we were there till 6 o'clock because we could not agree on a word. And so it was a, you know, I was like, what is going to come? But it came, you know, what was very impressive is we really do have amazing community. We have amazing kids, even back then in our first round, that really cared about every word. And that made me think, you know, this can't just live on a shelf. We have to live it every day. I have to hold staff accountable to it. We have to reflect on our actions. How are we following in our core values? And then this time it's interesting, the shift where it seemed like in the past it was a lot about trust, transparency, where now we didn't have as many discussion about that. It was a lot about student voice and getting our brand out there, and nobody knows how good we are, and why is that? We need to continue to push our brand, and everyone should know that we increased college readiness graduates from 53% to 73% in 1 year. Like, why doesn't everybody know that? And so that was very encouraging, extremely encouraging. One of the results of our original strategic design is streamlining our board meetings because they wanted that transparency. And now that's a system in South San. In fact, I think a lot of districts have kind of seen that we streamline, we live stream it, not just record it, but live stream where they can be a part of it in an effort to show that transparency. So that's what I learned.
Good. Dr. Saavedra?
In a very similar way, I think when we did it the first time 3 years ago, it was somewhat risky in reference to letting go, and not just letting go at our level, but letting go at the board level as well. The letting go actually started even prior to that. Probably the first time the board in South San really let go was when they signed off on my contract and gave the superintendent the administrative control of this district. Because prior to that, I think the board still controlled administratively this district. And I think the next step was the strategic process. I've also learned, and I've known this all along for many years, that when you have successful initiatives, someone champions these initiatives, and in this case that's been Delinda Castro that's championed this, and because she has recognized the importance of having a strategic strategy that moves us forward. The first time we did it, we had one board member, the board president, participate. To my knowledge, if I can recall correctly, no other board member participated this time. Quite a few of you participated also. I think it's been a much more open process than what it's been previously. But just the fact that we were able to start 3 years ago was basically a good start. This is the type of process that needs to be revisited every few years. It remains dynamic, fluid, and so forth. In some districts, it actually gets revisited every year. And that's something for this board to consider, as to how often you want to revisit this. I agree with Delinda. We have some great kids involved in the process. We also have had great employees, great community members, and really the involvement of the board and others in this process. Most people out there in the audience don't know this, but others outside the school system see this as a model board as a result of this process. And I've been to several meetings now where our board gets recognized for the work that they're doing, and the work that they support. These are the type of things that really transform the school system over time. And so I would encourage our board and really our employees and everyone in our community to stay involved in this type of process and remain open to new ideas, because that's the only way we get better.
Thank you. Okay, that was it for me. Mr. Ibarra?
Just kind of listening to Superintendent, speaking. This is a great process. It always has been. But he said something that was really important, and that's that we have to revisit it. And I think that is a true statement, especially when we just adopted a new theory of action. And so as we go into system of grade schools, I think some of the things on this change, it's not that they're wrong, it's just that, there's a direction. And
Well, we use system of grade schools. We had, our facilitators had, we use our systems of grade schools, all of the levers, in addition to Lone Star governments, and then we walked every specific results to make sure that that's going to get us the 40%, the college readiness for our goals, and it still aligns with, now at the time we didn't have the theory of action adopted, but that's what, we were going towards in our systems of grade schools. So actually Mike Hirschenfeld, our TEA support, saw the process, saw the agenda items, how it was walked, in fact, held a meeting with our staff to extend it to do our school performance framework. So actually all of that, he was there and saw, and can use this document to help, create our school performance framework.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about, so that we update it. I think it does probably need to be every year for a little bit at least, especially with academies coming in, technology just changes, so rapid nowadays. So that's just what I want to say. Thank you.
Okay. Together?
Ms. Gasso, you said something about the branding on South End. Did any ideas come up on marketing the district? Because like Dr. Sevilla said, there are great things happening, but nobody knows.
Right.
How are we going to get students back in here, or more students to come in here, if only administration, the board, we're the only ones who know
Right.
about the new things that are coming out, the great things we're doing?
Agreed.
Any ideas?
So yes, we had under 1.1 was establish a communication system that creates a strong brand that is disseminated across the city and state. First, designing and implementing that strong brand, providing professional learning and monitoring the implementation of that brand. So one thing we learned is, does everybody inside this building, everyone, from our custodians, our bus drivers, to academics, to business, does everyone know and can they state the successes of this district? And so we realized so that one of the things that we had was communicating within our own employees. How many of our employees know the great thing, like with our certifications that we shared last board meeting? That is a huge success. Does everybody know those successes? So something we learned, Ms. Guerra, is we need to educate our own. We need, not just so much going, in which we are going outside, but some of it is our own internal need to, those internal communications. What's the system, right, what's the system that we have so everyone knows, as bus drivers are greeting kids when they come on their bus, do they realize this is our call to action, how you are part of that call to action? I believe every director had to, when Mike Hirschenfeld came from TEA for SGS, as we worked on this document, every director had to submit their own vision for their department. Dr. Sevilla has mentioned that we're going to be holding ourselves accountable to that vision at cabinet meetings, because we see that even with our own, Division of Academics, we all know, but we need to make sure everyone, payroll, HR, everyone. So that was one of the things that we thought was a very solid first step, is how are we communicating our successes internally? And then the next step is, now that we are all speaking the same language, now we need to go out and expand that. So that was a first step, if you will.
Right, because like if you remember in Grand Prairie, they had the walls plastered, you couldn't see an empty space because it was either attendance or any kind of award. Everybody could see it. It provided motivation and competition.
Yes, ma'am.
So we need to do that.
We're on it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Flores?
Yes, I was happy to be a part of this the second time around. It did open my eyes because the way I see it now, that this whole process, it was already there, but it was tweaked. And, you know, we looked at how.
Things have changed since then.
Right, and things have changed, so we looked at how it can incorporate with the Lone Star governance and the system of great schools. I see it as a purpose for all of us who are starting with us here, all the way down to the campus level and community. It's a purpose, it's a guide, it's a roadmap, whatever you may want to call it, for what we have to do to serve our students and help them become successful in whatever path they choose to follow for their lives. And it's detailed, so in the decisions that we have to make, I think that this is as a reminder as to what is our work that we have to do in order to help our students. Because as Mr. Rodriguez has said, it is about the students. Whatever decisions we make, we can't go wrong if the decisions we make are for the students.
All right. Okay, so do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Number 2, discussion and possible action to approve the order adopting the tax rate for the school year 2018-2019. Okay. All right, so, Dr. Saavedra.
Thank you, Mrs. Ospedin. Last year, around this time, the board was faced with a very difficult decision. And that was the consolidation of some schools that resulted in the closure of the facilities. And you might recall at that time, when I made that recommendation to the board, that we talked a little bit about the fact that that decision should have been made by previous boards years before you actually were forced to make it. And we used the analogy of kicking the can down the road. Mike, let me have the slide with the map with the districts around us. Every school district around South San has acted on this, on setting their tax rate at $1.17. And some of these districts did it as recently as last year. San Antonio ISD, for example, did it as recently as last year. Other districts did it the first year they were able to. In this case, it was Harlandale. Clearly, the board at that time in 2008 in Harlandale did not kick that can down the road. And what resulted was that school district generating $80 million more dollars for the education of their kids. At the South San board at that time in 2008 not kicked the can down the road, this district would have, by now, would have generated an additional $64 million, which is not chump change, you know. This board is again faced with a very difficult decision to make. I can tell you, no elected official likes to increase the tax rate. No one does. I recognize that. But responsible elected officials do what is best in what their responsibility is. In the case of the school board, we heard it many times this evening from various board members, is to provide for the educational opportunities of children. And so we are at that crossroad at this point. And it's time that our community be given the opportunity to decide if they want to invest the $1.17 tax rate in the education of children. Because quite frankly, the vote that the board would be asked to take on setting the tax rate at $1.17 is simply empowering the community to make that decision. Because state law requires the community to make that decision. It does not empower you, the board, to make that decision. You basically set the tax rate, and if the community agrees with you, then the tax rate is officially set at that point. If the community does not agree with you, then it goes back to what it was. And while you were elected as board members to represent the community, this is one aspect of the law in the state of Texas where the community has to take that vote. And so the action that's required in this particular agenda item is simply setting the tax rate that's recommended by the administration. And if it goes beyond the $1.04, for the community to actually take that vote. I think this is probably certainly the most important decision that this board will make this school year. Maybe the most important decision you make in the whole tenure of your service to the children of the school district. This is such an important vote, and frankly such an important recommendation, that I want to ask the board for additional time to make this recommendation. I want to spend some more time with the attorney to make sure that we bring back at a future meeting, most likely the next meeting, a recommendation for setting this tax rate. I am not ready tonight to recommend to the board an increase in the tax rate, but it does not mean that the administration or the superintendent does not see the value in this. I simply want to study this further with the attorney, and whether we meet again in early June or we wait till the June 20th board meeting, I intend to bring this recommendation at that time. So at this point, I'm asking the board not to act on this.
Okay, so you are pulling number 2. Does that affect number 3?
It applies to everything that remains, that's correct.
Okay, so discussion has now been ended. Citizens to be heard. I believe I have Tom Cummings and then Mrs. Alder. Two minutes.
2 minutes.
You ruled me, so I should get money for trying to. That's why we're speaking on something else. Okay, first, on the TRE again, and we've said this before, funding gaps cause achievement gaps. If you want your kids to succeed, you have to fund it. And yes, I'm very disappointed that you're not moving forward tonight. And I've been very disappointed that you haven't moved forward in 10 years. When you first suggested act, I think it was 11. There's a couple of other things I want to say. Going back to the cafeteria situation, that needs to be put to an end so we don't have that discussion going on. It's not fruitful, and it's very distracting. On the police, I hear nothing but good things about the police and what they do in South San. And that's not always been true in other districts I work in. The professionalism is outstanding. I actually had a long ride and I can't get to it. She's getting a card out, so I'm really nervous. I didn't think you had a pink card. I also, our union would like to bring forward to you a proposal that we go to a 5-year teacher appraisal cycle like we had previous. And so we will be bringing that and hope that that's something we can work out during the summer for next year. We have that conversation with Ms. Gaskell about actually changing the T-test to something that's local. The T-test, most teachers use, and I know a lot of administrators who do not like the T-test. By going to a 5-year cycle, you're freeing up teachers, which you're supposed to be doing, you're freeing up administrators to also be serving students, parents, and helping teachers that actually need the help. They don't have the time right now.
Time.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Alvarado?
Good evening, members of the board. I just have a couple of comments, and hopefully you'll listen. I heard several comments from several board members up here tonight about how important this is to the children. And with you sitting up there and saying that, well, we elected you to do this, actually some were placed. And when you're elected, it's because we feel like we can come to you and you're gonna hear us. And many of us have come, or certain individuals have come and talked to several individuals on the board. I think that right now, this is the time to gain the trust of the community. I have asked, other people have asked, in different meetings, not just the meetings here in the district, but some of the board is attending HOA meetings, and it has been asked to form this committee. I do not understand why you guys don't want to do this, whoever's making the decision according to, I can't say positions, but according to a certain individual, that's up to the board. So I'm asking my elected official, please consider that, and everybody else sitting up there. At this point in time, it was a big discussion that the community does not trust the district. When it wasn't just me who asked for this was several people I don't know. I'd also like to speak on the officers tonight. It is very important that we are well-staffed. It was stated tonight that we are the only district that does this in San Antonio. We are actually one of the only districts that doesn't have the problems that other districts are having because of that. When we started losing our officers, I proved how easy it was for anybody to get on a campus and do what they wanted and cut a criminal trespass for it. You know, it shows that we need our officers. Unfortunately, it's something we don't want to talk about, but in this day and age, we need to talk about that. And I'd also like you to consider if child nutrition isn't giving us a problem and it's working the way it is and it's making us money, then why fix something that isn't broken? And lastly, I've heard a lot of talk about, you know, the programs and the early college program, but not one talk about special needs, not one talk about the test scores that we've gotten with the 5th and 8th grade. We're talking about all these academies, but we're not talking about the problems and how they're being caused. Because no matter how much money you put on it, unless we get to the bottom of those problems, it's not going to fix it. We're going to continue to lose. We're not going to gain anything. And until we get there, please form a committee, allow the community to help as a whole, all of us together, put our heads together and look for something. Because by turning us away, it's just making that trust even harder. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Adjourn. Is there a second? Motion has been made by Mrs. Carter, seconded by Mr. Lucia. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes, and the time is 9:11.